All right. Fantastic. So I welcome to that big HVAC show. This is the let me just share my screen and then we'll find out what it is. Share screen. First, let me find it. So this is the Aftercast, episode 3. And quite simply, the company I work for on a day-to-day basis was invited to speak to a group of individuals. This group is called the Northern Alberta Shopping Center Association, a group I was involved with when I lived in Edmonton. I was also a member of their golf committee and chaired their golf tournament for a couple of years. So they approached Gateway to speak to them about indoor air quality, the coronavirus, and what shopping centers can do. So my name came up because they were familiar with me. And though I now live in the Lower Mainland and Vancouver is my area, I prepared the presentation for them. So first of all, I want to make it very clear. I try very hard to keep both worlds separate. Like Gateway Mechanical is their own thing. They have their own marketing people, their own brand. The Big HVAC Show is my thing. It's because I've been in the business for over 30 years. I've come across a few things. I deal with HVAC stuff every day, and I use it for my own purpose to inform potential customers. It's my personal tool. So in no way is that Big HVAC Show connected or linked in any other way to Gateway Mechanical other than an employee of Gateway Mechanical, and this is my hobby. So make that perfectly clear. This is not a Gateway Mechanical product, that Big HVAC Show. So I started the Aftercast a while ago. This is actually the 3rd episode. And I thought it was such great information that was put together for the Northern Alberta Shopping Center Association, or NASCA, that it should be shared. So I'm taking this presentation that I created for my employer, and I will share it on this platform. So let's begin with that presentation. So on behalf of Gateway Mechanical, I'd like to thank the members of NASCA for inviting us here today to talk to you about indoor air quality, coronavirus, and the shopping centers. For myself personally, I think this is a fantastic opportunity to see some familiar faces and do some networking. So I appreciate the invitation personally. So for those of you who aren't aware who Gateway Mechanical is, we were founded in 1968. We are a family-owned company. The original founder is the middle here. His name's Bill Ohe, and today the company is run by his sons, Mark and Jackson. We are Western Canada's largest mechanical service contractor, providing heating, air conditioning, ventilation service, as well as refrigeration, plumbing, electrical, sheet metal, and indoor air quality testing. So a little bit of an outline. What we're going to be discussing here during this presentation is, I'm sure we're all aware by now, 15 months later, that there is a global pandemic. Well, what can we do to combat those things in the shopping center environment? What we're going to talk about today is filtration, ultraviolet light, and bipolar ionization, how they work, and the application. So as we said, there was a global pandemic, and when the pandemic first hit, we were told to wash our hands, not touch our face, stay 6 feet apart, and wear a mask. Now think of filters as the mask of your HVAC system. Or are all filters the same? Well, when the virus first came out, we were told to get an N95 mask because they were the best. How many of you here actually have worn an N95 mask? I haven't. I've just worn a mask. So not all masks are the same. In fact, with filters, there are MERV ratings, and that stands for the minimum efficiency reporting value, and they range from 1 to 20. If you have a filter that is a MERV 1, it is really good at catching pigeons and softballs, but anything smaller than that probably gets through. As the MERV rating goes from lower to higher, the efficiency increases, and the size of the particles it captures also decreases, and it can capture those. So you can go all the way up to a MERV 20. We won't go that high today in our discussion. MERV 16 is when you start hitting the HEPA filters. So what can we say about the filters here on the screen, these MERV ratings? Well, a MERV 8 is what you find in your typical building. It catches particles from 10 to 3 microns. So as the things listed here, or cat and dog dander, hairspray, mold spores, and pudding mix is the type that it catches. Now we go from MERV 9 to 12. These are found in better commercial facilities and hospital labs. And again, the micron rating is 3 to 1 microns. So again, this includes Legionella and also auto emission particles. And then the MERV 13 to 16, you find in hospitals and in general surgery areas, and they go from 1 to 0.3 microns. And these capture bacteria, when you sneeze, the droplets from the sneeze, smoke, and even face powder. So what if you want to upgrade your filters? What if you want to upgrade your mask? Then what do? Well, we're going to keep in mind there are 2.5 things to keep in mind when upgrading from a MERV 8 to a MERV 13, which has been the suggestion that has been out there now for about 9 months to upgrade to a MERV 13. We're going to discuss 2.5 things you need to keep in mind. The first is your HVAC system, or is your HVAC system currently running at 100%? See, an increased MERV rating would mean your system, if it's operating at 100%, now has to work harder to pull the same amount of airflow through that space. So you need to make sure that your fans and motors and systems can handle that increased workload. Getting an engineer involved might be it would be a good idea. But if you're running at 100% efficiency or 100% in your systems, and you add a more efficient filter, like I'm switching to a MERV 13, you're gonna be like Mr. Scott here and saying, "I just can't do it, Captain." Sorry, a terrible Scotty impression, but you get the idea. You're at max capacity and you're putting more demand on your system. It could result in failure, and that leads to other expenditures. However, if you're under 100% and your system's just rolling along in the 50-60% range, and upgrading to a MERV 13 is quite a possibility. So you want to take that into consideration. So that's the first thing, is your system currently at 100%? The second thing is, what is the age of your units? And are they near their end of their life? Here we have the ASHRAE life cycle chart. ASHRAE, if you don't know, stands for the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. So every HVAC company acknowledges them as the authority in our industry. So they're saying, on an average across North America, that the lifespan of a rooftop unit is about 15 years. And we see the one in the picture here is probably a little bit past that. That design was big in the 80s. So why is the age of the unit important? Well, if it's going to put greater demand on your unit and lead to potential failure, you could upgrade the filter sooner and take a chance. So we had a customer in Salmon Arm that had 4 rooftop units on their building. They were 28 years old, well past their life cycle, and decided to upgrade to a MERV 13 because they knew that they'd eventually have to change those units out in the next 2 to 3 years anyway. So at least this way, their clients that came into their building could feel at peace that they had good indoor quality, and they were taking proper steps to ensure their safety. And if the units failed, well, it was about to happen anyway. So that was their approach to upgrading from a MERV 8 to a MERV 13 in this facility. Is they're going to change the units anyway. They will take the risk and take that chance. So what about the half? Well, it is, you need to consider the warranty. So some clients we've worked with have honestly said, we want everything changed to a MERV 13. So we did this project in Penticton where we replaced a rooftop unit. And in speaking with the manufacturer said in any new unit, if you go beyond a MERV 11, it will void the manufacturer's warranty. So if you have warranty on any air handling units or rooftop units, be sure that an upgrade of filtration does not void into any warranty. So I suggest you discuss with your contractor or the equipment manufacturer to see if that's true in your case. So one thing to keep in mind with filters is filters capture and catch. They don't kill the virus, they just capture and catch it. So what else can we do other than wear a mask? Well, we're going to talk a little bit more, we're going to talk a little bit more about filtration in a podcast number 4, which will be released in early June. So I will be interviewing a filtration company and they can talk about that in more detail. So that's podcast number 4 of That Big HVAC Show, coming out in June of 2021. So what else can we do? Well, have you gotten your vaccine? There are many options for the vaccine. There's Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. Well, what about your building? Can your building get vaccinated? Well, again, there's options. There's ultraviolet light and bipolar ionization, or also known as plasma. And that's what we're going to discuss here today. So first of all, ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet light is one of the visible light spectrum. So we're going to focus in on that and not the others. So there are different types of ultraviolet light we need to consider as well. UVA is black light, and you've probably all seen those on those crime investigation shows. UVB is the UV index that we hear about when they're talking about the weather report. That's what gives us our suntan or our sunburn. And then UVC is what we're talking about when we talk about the ultraviolet light, because it attacks the virus. And how it does that is it actually breaks down the DNA of the bacteria and the spores and attacks the RNA of the virus. And so where do we find these things? That UVA and UVB are found here on the Earth's surface. UVC is in the atmosphere. So how does it work, but how do we make it work and apply it to the shopping centers? Well, a company called Sonybox has a few different products that we could use. The first one is the bio wall. So the bio wall is a light that gets put in the ductwork, typically in the return air duct. What's illustrated here is the airflow is moving in this photograph from left to right. It's coming from the occupied space through the return duct back to the rooftop unit or handler. In the ductwork, you have this bio wall. It can be from 18 inches to 5 feet long. That's a calculation that's done by Sonybox. It depends on a number of things. It runs parallel to the airflow, and it's either in the supply or the return. Typically, it's the return, because you want anything that's in the occupied space coming back through the system and then being, for lack of a better term, zapped in the ductwork or attacked in the ductwork. So we need to know the duct dimensions and the type of ductwork, because if it's an aluminum ductwork, it's highly reflective and better suited to accomplishing the goal of killing or attacking the virus. In some quotes we've done, we've actually had to replace that section of ductwork from galvanized to aluminum, as galvanized is low reflective. We need to know the CFM and how many air changes there are per hour. And then we need to then size all that for the virus so that on one pass, that it can be attacked. So again, depending, all those things are taken into consideration. We give that information to Sinovox. They then calculate what needs to be done, and we present a proposal based on that. So again, this lamp is 5 bulbs, and it's from 18 inches to 5 feet long. The Quattro by Sinovox is like a mini of the BioWall. It's for smaller units up to 5 ton. It has 4 lamps, and they're only a maximum of 18 inches. Another option that has some application is the P900GX, which works in a 900 square foot area. It's wall mounted like a picture. It plugs into an outlet, and it has a J-shaped UV light inside. So as illustrated here in the left-hand illustration, you see the dirty air goes into this wall-hung unit, passes the UVJ lamp, and then back out with the clean air. So again, this is for some tighter spaces. We've seen this in dentists' offices because they're very specific location in the dentist chair, making their patient feel confident that the air that they're breathing is safe. So ultraviolet light is one of the vaccines. So let me ask you, in the mall environment, have you ever experienced any of these? People sitting, people standing, people walking. You know, I can't think of a shopping center that doesn't have a school close by. So I'm sure there's always, you know, junior high or high school students coming over, and some horseplay is involved. Well, all of that movement, all of that creates particles, biological pathogens. And as one study indicates, there are over 18 million of these particles in 1 cubic foot of air. So how does bipolarization address all those particles? Well, have you heard of the law of attraction? Well, that's simply how bipolar ionization works. It works on positive and negatively charged ions and how they attract one another, and creating and then creating larger groups. So it works, this law of attraction works in 2 main principles. So let's just delve into each of those. The first is it deactivates viruses through a chemical reaction on their cellular membrane. You see, viruses have proteins, and these ions, they attack the proteins. And so that's how it attacks the virus when it's floating out there. The second mean is, again, that law of attraction, where these ions are positively and negatively charged, and they are attracted to a particle. Then as they float through the air, they attract other particles, and they get bigger and bigger, creating like a snowball effect. And eventually they're just caught in the filter. And that's how they attract, how that law of attraction works. So that's the science behind it. How does it actually work in your system? Well, instead of having different products, it's essentially 3 components that can be put in a system. So by your fan, there's the auto cleaning ion generator. At the evaporator coil, there are ion bars that keep the coil clean, and anything that passes through it, it cleans it there. And then once it passes the coil in the system and goes into the supply line, and only the supply line, because it's wanting to put these ions on the particles. So as those particles pass through the ductwork, the needle point bipolar ionization unit, the NPBI, puts out those ions, and then it attaches to those particulates as it comes into the supply. So once it gets into the occupied space, they're already being attacked. So that is the theory and idea behind bipolar ionization, which is the second vaccine. But what if you don't want to get a vaccine, but you still want to have a healthy building? What can you do? Well, just like anything else, it's diet and exercise, right? Diet and exercise. So you want to avoid recirculating the air. because if the air in the occupied space is contaminated and now you're recirculating it, it's just continuing to recontaminate the system and the occupied space. You can bring in more outside air, and then you want to improve the ventilation as well with more air exchanges. That way you're bringing more air in and taking more air out. Fourth, ASHRAE recommends operating your HVAC system in occupied mode prior to opening. One study, actually the European version of ASHRAE, suggested 2 hours prior to opening to get those systems up and running, and then make your decision of when you're switching them off at the end of the day. And last but not least, how many of you get an annual physical check? I'm sure some of us are a certain age where that happens, and that is really your indoor air quality test. You can get an indoor air quality test done, and that is really, like I said, simply your annual checkup. And as I mentioned earlier, Gateway Mechanical offers indoor air quality testing because that's where we spend 90% of our time. And so the offer we want to make to the NASCA members today, if you are a NASCA member and your membership is paid in full, we are offering 50% off an indoor air quality test. This offer expires June 1st, 2021. So you've only got a few more days to get this offer. And how do you get the offer? Well, you go to Gateway Mechanical's website. So that's gatewaymechanical.ca/indoor-air-quality-testing. And you enter the code NASCA-air-testing. And that gets you in the queue. And then we will come out and estimate how much the indoor air quality test will be. And again, that's until June the 1st of 2021 at 50% off. If you're looking for any other additional information about indoor air quality, go to Gateway Mechanical's website. That's gatewaymechanical.ca. And there we have a plethora of information that our team has researched and made available to you on indoor air quality. In fact, the article, Indoor Air Quality, Everything You Need to Know and More, was even recognized in the BOMA BC newsletter last summer as being an authority on the subject. So what can we take away from our discussion today? Well, wear your mask, have good filtration, vaccinate if you can, using ultraviolet light or bipolar ionization. If you can't do those things, diet and exercise, as we discussed those 5 things. And one of those 5 things was get an annual checkup, get an indoor air quality test. So I want to thank you for your time today. Again, I can be reached, or any of us can be reached. Any sales rep at Gateway Mechanical can be reached at the 1-800 number, and we'd be happy to assist you. I myself want to thank all those who subscribe to my YouTube channel and to my podcast for tuning into this discussion. Hopefully you've learned something. Please like, subscribe, and if you have a comment below or anything else you'd like to see either on the podcast or here on the Aftercast, I greatly appreciate it. Again, thank you for your time today on listening to the Aftercast episode 3, the NASCA presentation. I greatly appreciate it. And welcome to that big HVAC show. Okay, stop sharing my screen now. Okay, and the program. Bye all.